trying to get where my face is in the light. Let's adjust a little bit. Every time I look at these replays, they're so dark. Anyway, I'm Susan Smith. Welcome into my studio. I'll chat for just a minute while YouTube has an opportunity to let a few more people know that I'm here. That sometimes takes about a minute. So it is Monday morning where I am. I'm in the Pacific Northwest, and oh my goodness, it's a gorgeous sunny day today. So I'm going to quilt for a little while this morning and then head outdoors because it is a beautiful day today. I'm working on this lovely little child's quilt with Tula Pink's line work, panda print in the squares, and then lots of bright colors to set it off. And my topic today is how to quilt round circles, or what to do if you're not getting round circles and how to fix it. So that's what we're going to talk about. Again, just chatting for a moment while YouTube lets a few people know that we're here. And as always, I apologize for the trucks in the background. That's just my summer life. There's a lot of trucks on the street in front of our house. There we go. We've got lots of people tuning in now. Teresa, lovely. Okay, good to see you all here. I'll start again quickly. I'm Susan Smith. You're in my studio, Stitched by Susan. And yeah, there's more people coming in. Fabulous. Today's topic is, if you're having trouble quilting circles round, how do you fix it? I alluded last week to the story of when I was in my late teens, early 20s, and I was working in an accounting firm and learning how to touch type on an adding machine, which is like touch typing on a typewriter, just has fewer keys. And nobody really taught me this, but I kind of figured it out by trial and error, and I'm going to show you how it applies to quilting. What I learned at the adding machine is, well, what I was doing first off was adding not a spreadsheet, because we didn't have spreadsheets then. This was way back when. We had these big, you know, the accounting tablets that have all the columns and lines, right? And I was adding up for a whole shop that had a row of departments for every day and columns, and I had to add up this huge big sheet, right? Lots and lots and lots of numbers. Very unwieldy to be looking at the sheet, looking at the adding machine, right? Lose my place, yuck. So what I figured out was, okay, if I slow down far enough that I can keep my eyes on the sheet, on the numbers, and place my fingers by memory, not by looking, I can learn where the 1 is, and the 9 is, and the 4 is, and the plus button, and so forth. Here's the thing about it that applies to quilting. In order to do that, I first had to slow way down, because that did not come naturally. I did not automatically know where those numbers were. As time went on, and fairly quickly, even in a couple of hours, but certainly within a week, I was getting much, much quicker at it and much more smooth. And now I haven't worked in an accounting firm forever, but to this day, I can touch type on an adding machine and never have to look at it, right? It became second nature. Okay, how does this apply to quilting and circles specifically? The thing I see when so many people quilt circles is that they use centrifugal motion to go around the circle and then into whatever the next thing is and then around the circle. And it works to a degree, but if you're having trouble with your circles, doing more of them faster is not going to improve your form. The way to improve your form is to slow down and be in control of the machine on the entire curve, spiral, circle, whatever shape it may be. This applies to all kinds of shapes, but today we're going to talk about circles. So what I want to do for you, because on my little lovely panda quilt that I have loaded here, I'm quilting like a double circle design. So the whole thing is curves. That's really all I'm quilting. There's no points or junctions at all. So I've got my mic on. We'll see how this works. I'm going to quilt for a minute and let you listen to the sound of my machine. And here's what you're listening for. I do have the stitch regulator turned on, right? So if I were to speed up or slow down, the sound of the motor will change. My goal is to quilt so smoothly that the motor always sounds the same. So that's the bar that I'm reaching for and what you should be trying to do too. So I'm going to turn this down so you can see my needle a little bit. You won't be able to see the quilting, I know you won't, but be listening for the sound of that motor, okay? And I think you can see, yeah, my arm's up high enough you can see. Let's go. Now I'm going to take a second, I'll turn it off every time I talk. I'm going to take a second and exaggerate the stitch regulator a little bit and try to quilt out for you what I so often see quilters doing. Remember, I see a lot of quilters at a lot of quilt shows. I get to watch a lot of people make circles. Here's what it often sounds like. Sound familiar? So I would love to have you all chat with me and tell you what it feels like for you and if you're struggling with circles like this. And let's see if we can puzzle this out today. Selena, driving home from Nevada today. Melanie, Cynthia, Denise, Diane, Sherry, happy to join this chat. Fabulous. Sue Johnson, made it to the live chat. Good deal. Debbie, another Sue. Okay. Debbie, when doing circles, I imagine myself going around a coin. Yep. There are lots of little mantras you can play in your head and lots of tips that I have for sort of making things rounder, but my top tip today, which applies to any shape you're trying to learn, but especially to curves, is get away from doing that swirl, that kind of throwing the machine motion around a circle, right? Go slow enough that you have control over it the whole time. One word of caution, don't go so slow that you're doing one stitch at a time, because then you can't make a smooth movement. But somewhere in between there, and it might be different for you than it is for me, but somewhere in between there, you need to slow down enough that you are controlling every movement of the machine. And you'll know you're controlling when that sound smooths out, when your pace is the same no matter where you are in the curve or the design, right? Another topic for another day is talking about stitch regulation versus constant motion, and it's another tool that I use for teaching myself smooth quilting, but this is one way to approach it. Having that stitch regulator on and listening for the sound, because if the sound is rising and falling, then your speed is rising and falling too, right? And you're not aiming for perfection here. Mine is not, you heard it, it's not a perfect flat, but I'm always pushing toward that, being as smooth as I possibly can with the sound. Okay, Sherry, sounds familiar, we'll have to work on that. And Margaret, sipping my first cuppa. Oh, I've had a couple of those already. Gina, sounds just like me, I'm working on the slowdown. And I guess the point I want to make too is I'm not trying to make you a slower quilter. I just feel like you can build your skill better if you slow down, break it down a little bit, and focus on different things, making those different components better. So in this case, we're working on the smoothness of our movements. And I think you will become a better quilter and possibly even a faster quilter in the long run if you slow down enough to master this. Much like me at my adding machine, I was way faster once I learned to touch type and didn't have to look back and forth and didn't risk making errors, right? That's an obvious example. It was so much better to do it by touch. Teresa, I try to keep my speed the same too. Yes. Okay, I'm going to wait for a few more comments to come in because I expect there's more chat coming on this topic. But while I do, many of you were in my workshops this week where I was talking about some of the things that grow our confidence in quilting, help us make decisions about what to quilt, have faith in our inner artist that we can, in fact, every one of us who wants to can be a free motion quilter. This morning I sent out the replay to that workshop. So if you were registered, you've got a chance to look at it. It'll be up through the 5th, which is I think Thursday of this week. And in this workshop too, I introduced my free motion quilting masterclass, which teaches a lot of free motion quilting designs, but because I'm a really practical person, it also teaches things like this: how to practice, how to apply yourself to learning new shapes, new skills, new designs, so that you can grow your skill more quickly than if you just did it over and over and over again and hoped for the best, hoped that eventually your circles would get rounder. They might, but they'll get rounder faster, much faster, if you break it down and slow it down a little and approach it this very intentional way, I believe. So, Janice, I definitely hear the Zoomies need to work on that. Deborah, just like me, need to slow down on the curves. And again, let me emphasize, this does not mean you need to be a slow quilter forever. This just means you need to slow down enough to know that you're in control of your machine. And once you've got that control mastered and that smoothness happening, then you can start speeding up. Then you can start applying that to different shapes. And your quilting skill and precision overall is going to rise. I'm living proof of that. I've done that in my own quilting journey. And I was just looking at my records the other day, and over 1,000 students have gone through my free motion quilting masterclass over the years. And I have so many testimonials that are proof that this system works. Debbie Fleming, who's here this morning, she's one great success story. She was in the very early stages of her quilting journey last year, and she enrolled in the class. And boy, I have just seen Debbie flourish and turn out so many quilts and learn so many new designs. It's wonderful. Okay, any more questions about the circles? I'm not really seeing them. It does take a moment. I don't know, YouTube seems a little slower on the response lately. When I open each time at the beginning, it takes about a minute for people to see that I'm online, and it used to only take about 10 seconds, so go figure. And it seems to take a little time for the comments to come through to me too. Debbie, you won't regret the investment. I appreciate that, Debbie. So I will just say, enrollment to that free motion quilting masterclass is open all of this week. I'm standing by, so is my assistant Erin, to answer any questions that you have about the content or how it's delivered. But very simply, the way that it works is when you enroll, the whole course opens up for you immediately. All the modules, all the lessons, they never expire. So you receive via email login connections, and that's yours for always. Surrounding it, though, I do have some live Zoom sessions and a Facebook group and some other support things that are timely that are happening in the next 6 or 8 weeks. They're optional. The course material is always yours, but if you want more time with me, more feedback, chance to ask questions, there's lots of that included in the masterclass purchase too. It is truly my passion to help novice quilters particularly, but just to help other quilters find their confidence and their mojo in free motion quilting, because again, I think that everyone who wants to do it absolutely can. There is a learning curve, there absolutely is, but I'm here to help you make that curve as quick and as smooth as possible. Okay, more comments did come in. Let's see. Pamela, on a sit down, is it as easy? It's different on a sit down because you're moving the fabric. The exact same principle of smoothness applies. I think, my opinion, I think it takes more practice at a sit-down machine because moving the fabric is honestly a little more difficult than moving the handlebars. However, you're striving for exactly the same thing, smoothness of movement. And on a sit-down, not only does that make your curves rounder, it helps with beautiful stitches and tension. Any jerkiness in your movement kind of messes with the formation of stitches. So is it as easy? I have to say no. A long arm is easier. Is it doable? Also, yes. I learned to quilt on a domestic sewing machine before I had a long arm, and I still do from time to time just to kind of keep my hand in. And also last year, I re-recorded all the quilting demos for this masterclass, and I added every single design quilted at a domestic sewing machine so that you can see the movements. You can see if I sometimes made adjustments to make them a little finer, a little smaller, the movements a little smaller instead of great sweeping ones like you can do at a long arm. So it's important to me that I try and be where you're at, right? So I keep my hand in quilting on my domestic sewing machine as well, which is much like a sit-down long arm. Margaret enrolled in your masterclass on Saturday. Yes, I saw your name, Margaret. Very excited. So stylish designs. Just starting to learn on my domestic machine and investing in a Juki soon to have more room, but starting somewhere, and I need to go slower too. It's foundational. Again, I can't emphasize this is enough. I'm not trying to tell you you have to be a slow quilter, but I am saying slow and controlled is how you build that control and precision, and then you can go faster once you've got those smooth motions down. Someone commented on one of these chats last week. I can't quote her exactly, but she had done martial arts for years and years, and her instructor slash coach used to always say to her, doing the same bad movement faster is never going to improve your form, right? You've got to slow it down, break it down, figure out the form, and then build in the speed or add the complexity or whatever the case may be. So stylish. I get the eyelashes often, also still messing with tensions. I will say to you, if you're working at a sit-down machine, and I think that's what you said you're doing, I wouldn't stress too much about the tension. I would literally work on figuring out that smooth motion, and you might see the tension literally smooth out. Eyelashes happen just because of unsmooth movements, not because your tension is incorrect. Does that make sense? Like, your tension may also be an issue, but you may have perfect tension and still be getting eyelashes, is what I'm saying. So really, just do some practice every day if you can, 10, 15, 20 minutes. And even in a week's time, I think that you'll start to see your movement smooth out, and it might address that attention issue for you, the eyelash stitches. Deborah, I've seen some quilters with headphones on. Does this help with the sound, maybe getting a rhythm? I feel like this is a little different for different people. I like quilting with headphones or earbuds because I tend to get in a groove. I almost relax more and do more smooth quilting. But some people find that they really need to hear the sound of the machine in order to determine if they're quilting smoothly. So there's a time and a place for it. Experiment with it though, by all means. Jennifer, hi Susan, does the dead bar have a purpose other than avoiding having to raise the take-up bar as the rolled quilt gets thicker? I don't have one on my frame. You've nailed it, Jennifer. My last quilting machine did not have that dead bar either, which is this silver aluminum one at the back. And yes, you had to raise and lower the take-up roller as the quilt got fatter, right? You had to be adjusting for that. So the dead bar keeps it absolutely steady because it always feeds at the same level. That is the purpose of it. So stylish totally makes sense. Good deal. Shannon, bought a Bernina Q24 a few months ago, started watching your videos because the store forgot to set me up with prepaid classes. You've helped me a ton. Thank you. I'm so glad. I mean, that's what I'm here for. So in closing today, I will be coming live every day this week through Saturday with a live snippet. And Friday, I'm going to have my usual live and unscripted. Not sure which quilt it is yet, but I'll be quilting something on Friday. So if you want to see my type of quilting, my edge-to-edge free motion quilting in action, real time with no editing, Friday's the time for that. I'll be sending out an email with the details later this week. And so all of that is coming up. Feel free to comment on any of these live snippets if you have questions or topics you'd like me to talk about. They're very informal, so generally, like today, I'm just pulling up something that I'm working on and I'm like, oh hey, this may be of interest and help somebody else. So that's kind of what these little live snippets are all about. Paula, when doing free motion on your Q24, do you disengage the vertical and horizontal belts? Yes, you absolutely have to. Those belts are intended for when the computer is driving it. You cannot free motion quilt with the belts engaged. There's just way too much resistance. So fortunately, it's just the flip of a lever, horizontal, vertical, and you're good to go, set up for free motion. Okay. Gina, thanks so much for all of your help. You're so welcome. Deborah, thank you, Susan. Good. I'm so glad to be of help to you and of service. Please feel free if you have any questions about the masterclass, or if you're way beginner, I also do have a machine quilting for beginners course that's more about the practical aspects like batting and needles and assessing quilt tops and things like that. Let me know what you're needing help with, and I'm happy to answer any questions. So info@stitchedbysusan.com or support@stitchedbysusan.com. Erin and I will be happy to help you. Diane Borg, slower is also a good idea even if you use robotics. Just because the machine can go faster doesn't mean it should. I agree with you, Diane. I don't feel like you should ever run your machine at the upper end of its possible limits. Like, what's possible is not always what's best. You kind of run a higher chance of thread breakages and things going wrong when the needle hits a seam or something like that, right? So good advice. Slow down a little, but certainly slow down when you're trying to master a particular skill. You'll find it so helpful. All right, you guys, thanks for joining me today, and I will catch up with you again tomorrow.